Welcome to Pioneer Portraits. I am your host, Darla Miller. Join me as we dig into the university experience of Malone students and alumni and hear more about what challenges, encourages, and inspires them. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this podcast where today we are going to be talking to two students who last year attended our Young Christian Leaders Retreat and then actually are now students at Malone. And they actually are young Christian leaders. I know both of them, and they are very active on campus already, and we're excited to have you guys here. So I'm going to have you introduce yourself and then tell your class and your major and what your hometown is. Go.
Hey, source.
So, I'm Deana Peterson. I'm a Bible and Theology and Creative Writing double major, and then I have a business minor. And then I'm from Sandy Valley. That was my high school, but I lived in Magnolia, which is like really close to Sandy Valley.
Okay, great. In your church, what is your church, Deana?
I go to the East Canton Church of God.
Okay, great.
I'm Noel Gutierrez King. I'm a freshman here, and currently I am a music education major, and I'm also looking to double major in worship arts if we're bringing that back.
Worship arts?
And we currently live in Canton, but I went to Jackson pretty much most of my academic career.
Okay, great. And what's your home church?
My home church is River Tree Fairless.
Okay, good. So for people who don't know, pastors recommend students that they feel like high school students, that they feel like are leaders in their youth group or in their schools. It can also be Christian schools that are doing it. And just say, these are kids that we think are outstanding. And what we've tried to do with the Young Christian Leaders Retreat is bring you guys together and help you build a community of like-minded leaders and let you get to know other people who are Christians from other places. So having said that, now you need to tell me that was a success last year. Now, you guys are here, so I assume that you enjoyed it. But what brought you to Malone? Let's start with that, and then I want you to talk a little bit about your experience at the Young Christian Leaders Retreat.
For me, it was a lot of it did actually have to do with the Young Christian Leaders Retreat because I wasn't planning on going to college until April of 2023. And it was a really nice experience, especially because I've known a couple people who actually attend here already, and yeah.
So when you got here, you had friends.
Yeah,
that was great. How about you, Deana?
So last year when I was looking for colleges, I decided Malone was not going to be one of those colleges on my list. And as time went on, God kind of crossed different colleges off, ones that I wanted to go to, and he really brought Malone up to the top. And through some logistical things and through prayer, it kind of became clear that Malone was where I was supposed to go. And for a while I was like, I don't really understand. I had a different plan. And then when I got here, I kept seeing God just reveal yeah, this is where you're supposed to be. And just remind me that when I didn't see the plan and when I had a different plan, he had it all figured out. So long story short, I wasn't going to go to Malone, but then God made it happen. And I think at the Young Christian Leaders Retreat, it was one of the first experiences I had at Malone that was oh, I think I belong here. I can really see myself here. I remember we went to Celebration that Thursday night, and that was really impactful for me. That was one of the highlights of the retreat, and that was one of the moments I was like, oh my, I see I'm surrounded by people who are following Christ, and that's what I want. And so I think that was just a confirmation for me that was I think I might belong here.
Well, you do belong here. I know you do. Talk a little bit about your walk with Jesus. I know both of you obviously were strong Christians in your church and being seen as leaders, but talk about your personal walk with Jesus and how you've seen that grow since you've come to Malone.
So I didn't actually really grow up in a Christian household. Pretty much all of my life, there was like, I guess I had this like concept that there was a creator, but I didn't personally know him. That wasn't really something that like went on when I was growing up, but I just, when I was about 8 years old, my parents split, and that was really hard on my family, and kind of just like I realized that like I had this this emptiness in my heart that I was trying to fill with all these different things growing up throughout school. I was trying to get like popularity and girls at one point, and eventually like I got into a pretty bad crowd already in the second half of my sixth grade year, and I had an addiction, and I just started abusing methamphetamines, and that lasted probably about 4 years up until halfway through my freshman year of high school, and I ended up in a very bad place in my life, and I had nothing, and I was only surrounded with the consequences of my actions, and I wanted to give up, but God had different plans because He just revealed Himself to me the next day, and I opened a Bible for the first time, and I didn't really know what I was doing. I just started reading out of like Genesis or Matthew or wherever. But after I got a baseline understanding of who Jesus is, I prayed for the first time, asking for forgiveness and asking for like saving from the situation. And He did that an hour later, and it completely changed my life. And I promised God then I would just like follow Him for the rest of my days, and here we are.
And here you are. All right, Deana, what caused you to come to the Young Christian Leaders Retreat? I know you were nominated.
So my mom is the youth pastor at my church, and I was the only senior girl. And we had one senior guy. We're super close. We're really good friends. But he had received a full ride scholarship to a different school, and so he knew who was going there. And so she nominated myself and then one of the juniors in our youth group. And I was a little hesitant at first. I had a track meet the next day. I turned 18 the next day.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, it's so much. But she just encouraged me that, like, making connections and branching out and getting uncomfortable and saying yes to things is good. And so I did, and I'm really thankful I did. My mom has always been the one to push me, and I'm really thankful for that. But it was a lot of her prodding and a lot of me saying, okay, this is worth it. This is worth the commitment and the time and the energy. So, yeah.
All right. What caused you to come to the retreat?
So I was super involved throughout most of high school with my church's student ministries, whether it was just going to the high school youth group or volunteering with the middle school group. I had a group of now 8th grade guys that I had the honor to help lead and teach throughout the last 3 years. And I was just super involved, and I already expressed that I felt some calling into worship ministry to my pastors, and my youth pastor just decided to nominate me for the Young Leaders Retreat, and
you came.
Yeah.
So what was your biggest takeaway from the retreat?
I think my biggest takeaway was that there's multiple ways that you can glorify God. It doesn't necessarily have to be in college only, but God led me here. I know that for sure, even when I didn't understand why. But yeah, it's just that, and I think just worship is living a Christ-like life, and whether it's on or off stage.
Good. What's your biggest takeaway, Deana?
If you would have asked me right after the retreat, it probably would have been different. But now the thing that I remember standing out the most is that leaders are healers, and that means that leaders don't shy away from what's broken. They actually are drawn to it, and that leading isn't pretty, and that just like Jesus served and was humble and ate with the sinners, and he gets in the muck of our life, then being like Christ, we also need to not desire brokenness, but desire and see that healing in the midst of brokenness. Because we're not the healer, but we can see the work of the healer even when it hasn't happened yet.
So our ongoing theme is caring for one another, and I think that's a beautiful explanation of what we hope. We hope that as you get to meet other teenagers when people come, that they learn about caring for one another, even if you have just met each other. You're going to spend eternity together. So how do we care for each other? So I love that. Thanks. Tell me something that you learned about yourself, I think let's go with yourself, that surprised you.
At the retreat, or?
At the retreat. Let's start with the retreat. Unless nothing did, and then you can say, but then I came to Malone, and this surprised me.
I think for me, I was so set on just, I think, going to blue collar work or starting an internship right away. And I did not think that I was enough for college at all. And God just completely turned my plans around. And even when I wasn't expecting it, and it was kind of funny because when I brought interest into going to college finally, I told my mom, I was like, hey, I applied for Malone, and I wanted to see if it was okay with you. And she was like absolutely freaking out for the first week, I think. But we both knew as soon as I set foot on like campus grounds that I was that Jesus was just leading me here, and I was supposed to be here.
That's great.
So this was more of what came out of celebration and just some prayer that we had at the retreat. There's something that's really been weighing heavily on me, and that I've just been wrestling with God and in the scriptures with for a couple years now. And I remember feeling like God was saying, Deana, you can't ask me to fight for you and then have all these defenses yourself. Like, you're fighting for yourself, and then in order to ask me to fight for you, you have to lay those weapons down. And that was something that, like, I really like control, and that was hard. And I think just, like, realizing that I wasn't really giving God control. I was asking for God to take control, but then I was just holding so tightly to it. So that was one thing I realized. And then the second thing is I get homesick really easily. And I thought for sure I was going to get homesick that night when we were staying there. And I really didn't. And I was like, maybe I'm like more of an adult than I thought.
I think the way that we do force you guys out of your comfort zone, because first of all, we say only 2 people to 3 people from a youth group max, because we want it to be a time that you're getting to know other Christians. But then we don't put you together with your friends. We group you separately. Did that give you an opportunity, I guess, is one of the questions. Do you feel like you got to know some of the other students? what are things based on getting to know other students and knowing what you brought to the retreat that you would give as advice to students who are coming next week, by the way?
I think so. Something funny is I think it's like a mutual feeling with most people that I was recently talking about with this, but I very vividly, if at all, remember anybody else I went on the retreat with, including Deana. And
I don't remember him either.
That's really funny. We're going to have to work on that
Yeah.
this
I
year.
remember so many people, but we don't remember each other.
Yeah,
That's hilarious.
and I think it was because like in high school I was very introverted. Like when it didn't come to my church.
You were introverted.
Yeah,
I'm surprised.
I think for like the second half of it, I kept a very tight circle and I didn't really have interest in growing it, I guess. And I was so wrapped up in just like, I guess like just the spiritual growth and like being on a college campus and wrestling with like the ideas of, oh, my plan might not go the way I thought it
Okay.
would. But if I had any advice for any oncoming students who are going on to the retreat, I would say just take really good note of what you hear from all the speakers, and don't be afraid to talk to your peers that are among you there.
Good.
I think something I would say is be expected for people to lead differently, because you don't know them when you walk in. You don't know how they lead. You don't know where they come from. So don't have expectations that have to be fulfilled in order for them to be a correct leader. Kind of ask for some discernment and some guidance with that. That not everyone's going to lead like you. We all have different gifts because we're the body of Christ. I think also it's going to be uncomfortable no matter what, and embrace that. I appreciated that I got to meet new people, because that's something I often get frustrated with if there are cliques in the body of Christ, because I don't think that should happen. We all have a group, but we're all the body of Christ, and we're all going to be in eternity together. But I also think some advice I would give is even making it spread out, so the person from your youth group you're not always with, but having some time with them too, so that you can be like, hey, what are we learning? How can we bond here, and how can we take it back? Because I know I didn't get to spend a ton of one-on-one time with the girl I went with, and I think it would have been really cool if we could have been like, hey, what can we bring back to our youth group? So like a mix of both, like meeting new people and spreading out and connecting with the people you came with. I think that would be really cool from my perspective.
Okay, I'm taking notes. We use community all the time at Malone, and I think it's just our nature. Even with this retreat, the goal, is to build community and to broaden your community. So tell me, since you've been students at Malone, what are the ways that you've seen that word really put to action? I think about even your classes. What are some of the things that you could add to that?
I think I've seen a lot of community. Honestly, Malone and its people, both students and staff, have just been so inviting and accepting with open arms. And I've seen it throughout like every single part of my college experience so far, whether it's just campus life and meeting people who are in your hall or at the cafeteria or in class. It's just really strong throughout it all. Like everybody just really sticks together and we're all kind of like like family even.
Deana?
I would say something I'm learning about community since coming to Malone is that we need it in a humbling sense. I like to be independent and I like to be self-sufficient, but I'm learning that being dependent on Christ and on other people is natural and necessary. A lot of times I like to have control and I like to say I can do it. And I'm learning that it takes humility to say I can't, and God, I rely on you and I depend on you for this, and I'm gonna like stop putting half-hearted attempts in here because I don't got it. And there's times when I'm like, man, this is really heavy. I just need to talk to somebody. And so I have incredible suite mates and a roommate, and I'll just go over and I'll just like, guys, can I just like talk to you? And they're so willing to listen. And I think I'm learning like I can't do it and it's not me and I need people and I need Christ. And I think it's even in a more emphasized way because living with my parents my whole life, I could always talk to my mom or I could talk to my dad or my sister and they were always there. I didn't really have a ton of things that were separated. And so coming to college and stepping away from living at home, seeking out that community and discovering how important community is has been something really big for me. I know in like my theology class, we're talking a lot about how scripture was written for community. It wasn't necessarily just written for one person, but like a lot of the epistles were written for like churches. Like it's not just for me and it's not just for you, it's for us. And so we need to read it in community and share in community. And so that's something I've been learning about community. I think I'm seeing community in just the people. So many people are so friendly. I just like walk into buildings, they're like, "Hi, Deana." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, hi." And I think really intentionally seeking out people, knowing who you want to surround yourself with, and then seeking out those people and finding that community. I think if you really are intentional, you'll be able to find it. I think you have a say in what your community looks like. And I think we talked about this in Gen 100, carrying somebody else's mat and letting somebody else carry your mat. It's a give and take. You're going to have to say, I need help, I need you. And you're going to have to say, hey, how can I help? This is overwhelming for you. Let me shoulder this too.
Awesome. If you were going to give advice to some sophomore or junior or senior out there saying, wow, I don't really know where I'm going to go to school next year, why would you tell them to choose Malone?
Malone truly centers everything from academics to social life around faith, and I've always just loved that about here is that it really means what they're like. They really mean what they're preaching, and they're bold about it, and everybody's welcome no matter what, even if you're not Christian per se. And we hope that that despite that though, that you would come to find Christ here. And I think Malone's very Christ-centered. I think that's very important as believers to surround ourselves with teachings and community that is Christ-centered as well.
Deana, you want to add anything?
Yeah, okay, so first of all, I would say no college is going to be perfect. I think I had this thought in my mind when I was looking for colleges that I had to find the perfect college that fit this, and this, and had all of these things. And if it didn't, then maybe that's not the right college. And no college is going to be perfect. Figure out what's important to you, which is what I find that Malone fits for me. I remember when I was looking, I wanted a Christian college. And so if it wasn't Christian, I didn't really consider it just because that was my preference. And then I wanted a college that was actually Christian, not just a name, that their values and their beliefs and the things that they supported were truly Christ-like and not just association. And I found that here at Malone. Also, life on campus, academics, the professors. My professors answer my questions all the time. They're so wonderful. And not only academic questions, they integrate faith into the classroom so well. I incredibly appreciate that. I came from a public school, and the first time my professor prayed in class, I had a conniption. I was like, oh my goodness, this is incredible. And so I think Malone is really great at that, at bringing academics and faith together, and like what you talked about, social life as well, and rising up leaders, and really focusing on calling more than just career. But I also think that for seniors and juniors, don't put pressure to find the perfect college or the one that looks the best, or to have your plans all solidified. Be willing to go where God calls and to listen. And even when your plans don't line up with that right now, be willing to be obedient and have some faith that in the end it's going to work out and it's going to be really pretty. God makes everything beautiful in its time.
All right. I like that ending. So thanks so much for coming and being with us today. And we'll see you Sunday night.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining us today for Pioneer Portraits. I hope you will pray for Malone University. Send us students. Come visit our campus and speak well of us. If you like what you hear, share this episode on your social media or tell a friend the old-fashioned way.